Alright, YouTube, Hillary Clinton has proven that she's not quite as intelligent as most mammalian species. She apparently didn't learn from the somewhat disastrous results of her Reno speech. You know, that time she declined like 4 or 5 points in the polls after a week. Now she's got a new quip regarding Trump supporters. Now, it's generally a bad idea when you're trying to cast yourself as the sensible, sane, centrist alternative to someone you're trying to cast as, like, you know, Wicked Witch of the West mode, like she does to Donald Trump. It doesn't really make sense to attack anything other than your opponent or, you know, their aides or people who've endorsed them. It's not a good idea to go after those supporting them because then it makes you look mean. This is why the Reno speech failed, but Hillary Clinton didn't learn this lesson. She has now doubled down. And her new line is the basket of deplorables. That is, that half of Trump supporters, some tens of millions of people in this country, are racist, sexist, bigoted, Islamophobic. They're horrible, deplorable individuals. I can see this probably backfiring because it's not usual for politicians to attack the actual voters that are supporting a candidate. They'll attack the candidate instead. Usually what happens, the sensible strategy is to say, well, I can understand why they support them because X, Y, and Z, but here's why my opponent's plans won't actually help them. They won't actually, you know, their problems won't actually be solved. My opponent has said this 20 years ago. My opponent said that a month ago. This is what my opponent really stands for. And then they'll give like examples. They'll try to compare and contrast. They'll compare themselves favorably with their opponent, trying to woo the voters that are supporting the other side. Hillary Clinton has given up bothering, I guess, to do this because anybody who is supporting Trump, whether they're part of her so-called basket of deplorables or not, is not going to respond well to being perceivedly lumped in with this basket of deplorables. She said, of course, half of Trump's supporters are apparently evil bigots, which means, you know, something like 20% of the American public is, or at least voting public, is evil bigots. It's quite a large number. You'd think that Hitler won the war. The other half feel like the government has failed them. The thing is, all of Trump's supporters think that the government's failed them. Trump doesn't have political experience. They wouldn't be voting for him for something that is being branded as a change away from the status quo. They'd be voting for Clinton if they thought the government hadn't abandoned them, because Clinton has worked with the current sitting president. She is a continuation of Obama's policies. Whatever aide or staffer or advisor told her it was a good idea to attack not Trump himself, as she mainly has done, but to go after those supporting him, should be canned if she's got any sense whatsoever. Apparently she doesn't, though. If she thought this was a good idea, it shows just a masterful contempt for common sense. You wouldn't have to be a Trump voter to see why this would be problematic. Mitt Romney fucked his own campaign when he did this. The 47% comments. Oh, well, 47% of the American electorate, they just take, they don't pay in, then they are just lazy and so forth. Now, the problem was that 47% included people that he would have been competitive with. People who drew pensions, people who were temporarily unemployed, people, veterans and so forth, people with mental illnesses. So it was a problematic thing what Clinton just did. If it actually gets reported on, Fox will probably talk about it briefly, otherwise it'll just be online that you see it. If the mainstream media actually bothers to report this relatively major gaffe, then, it could sink her campaign. You might not even need WikiLeaks after that. People will look at this and they'll say, well, a lot of her supporters, it's the Rubio effect, just like with Reno. I said after Reno, it's the Rubio effect. That's why she's losing support. And she did. Rubio effect applies here too. She's supposedly the sane one in the room. More maybe soft-spoken, or dozes off randomly. More cognizant, more aware of things. She has political experience. She's the adult's candidate, she tries to brand herself as. And then she attacks the alt-right, which none of her fans probably knew anything about. And half of them probably said, oh, okay, internet stuff. I don't know what that is. And then now she's attacking Trump's fans. Well, she should be attacking Trump. I'd think that'd be a better strategy. But she's too fucking dumb, I guess, to realize that. Well, it's advantage Trump on this one as well. If Trump were to attack Clinton's voters and say, oh, well, half of Hillary Clinton's voters are just a bunch of fucking retarded hippies or something to that effect, what would the media do? It'd crucify him. Oh, he's out of touch. He's attacking the common man. He's attacking the average American. 2 arms. We must defend our country against this evil, tyrannical person. Well, then, are you going to hold Hillary Clinton to the same standards? She just attacked a quarter of the voting public, or thereabouts. So, I would think that it would be certainly newsworthy. I think this article, this one's on Politico. Now, Politico is usually like Hillary friendly. They're mentioning the 47% comment here, which should be slightly worrying to Hillary Clinton. Be interesting to see how this plays out. At the very least, though, whether it's, just stays on the internet, nobody in the lamestream media even reports it, it's not going to be good for Hillary. Most people are going to look at that. If they're an independent voter, they haven't made up their mind yet. All they're seeing is a bitter old woman who is down in the polls, desperately lashing out at the supporters of her opponent, because she apparently has run out of ammunition to attack her opponent himself. It looks cowardly, it looks weak, and it looks stupid. And it is stupid. It's like when I criticize Hillary Clinton, I don't criticize, some people do, but I don't criticize her fans, because some of them, I guess the economy's working for them. Okay, they want the status quo. Or they're like an Obamaniac or something like that, and they've been taken for a ride by the mainstream media. They're confused and don't realize how reality is actually working. They actually think that things are going well. So I can understand. I think it's a form of delusion, but I don't call them deplorable individuals. And the very use of the term basket of deplorables, well, that's a great catchphrase for making a viral story about a dumb political candidate. But it doesn't really do anything to illustrate the point, because all I'm thinking about in my head is a literal wicker basket full of deplorable individuals, and Hillary Clinton's head is sticking up out of the middle of the basket. She probably just sunk herself a little bit further. It will probably have an impact. I can't imagine that it won't. When particularly dumb things are said. Not just, oh, I made a mistake about this policy, or, oh, yeah, I regret voting that way 5 years ago. Not some minor thing like that. When something truly stupid is said, so that you actually get a chuckle out of the fact that it was said in the first place by somebody who supposedly has some degree of intelligence, that's when you know that there will be some sort of reaction. I don't see this boding well for her among those independent voters that she's already well behind with. I think she's like 20 points behind with independent voters. That's not good for Hillary Clinton. These are people who, in many cases, have not made up their minds, but they're registered to vote. And if they were leaning towards Trump at all, they're probably leaning a lot more towards him after they hear the news that she finds them to be deplorable. Well, if you're so deplorable, if she thinks that you're so deplorable, why would you want to vote for her, in other words? It wouldn't make any sense. You'd be supporting somebody who's lumping you in with like a bunch of Nazis and, bigots and wife beaters and stuff like that. It just doesn't look good for a presidential candidate to attack tens of millions of people within their own electorate, because the President of the United States is supposed to represent as an executive the interests of all Americans, not just, the Americans that happen to ideologically support everything that I do. Clinton, of course, as an imperialist figure within the executive branch, because she was the First Lady, doesn't think along those terms. She thinks if somebody completely agrees with her, fawns over her, and kisses her feet, they're good, otherwise they're a traitor. She probably rummages through her neighbor's garbage to find out if they've, written anything sarcastic about her, if they're reading the wrong books, so she can send them to a re-education camp or some shit like that. So yeah, Clinton's basket of deplorables. What an interesting buzz term. That's about all. Peace out.